All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mocktail Minutes. This is Bailey.
And this is Brianna.
Today, we do have a guest, which we will introduce in just a moment. But I am drinking a Swoon again. It's the half iced tea, half lemonade. They're kind of becoming my favorite drinks. And they kind of match me today.
That's
Look at
not the
that.
muffin one, is it? Remember you had one like a couple weeks back, it tastes like a blueberry
Yes.
muffin in a can. Is that
Was
it?
that, was it Revive?
There we go. That's what that was. Never mind.
It might have been another one. But this was the one they had the Barbie flavor with the like pink lemonade, and it tasted like after you spent a night drinking too much and then you're just throwing up stomach acid. That's what it tasted like.
My favorite. Perfect. Well, that's good to know. I always show my cup and it doesn't matter. It's my cup. I'm drinking the watermelon element today.
Mhm.
I think it's my favorite flavor, but that's what I'm
Yeah.
having today. So
I
it's
tried I think it's lemon habanero element this weekend.
I wanted
Yeah,
to make like a margarita from it, like a spicy
yeah.
margarita. I don't, that sounds good. I haven't done it
It
yet.
was it wasn't like terrible, but I'm not a spicy person. So if you like spicy, you'd probably like it.
I love it. Today we have Julie with us. I'm super excited about this episode because she's going to be talking about some stuff that we get a lot of questions on, and I feel like she's going to give it to you today. So, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Julie Prisbilla. So PrzYbyla, in case you never really knew how to say it, Prisbilla. I get that a lot too. Julie, how do you say your name? But I'm a registered dietitian and certified personal trainer. I've been in the health and wellness field for probably 20 years now. I started with teaching group fitness when I was in college and then had a weight loss journey when I was in grad school. Did a career 180, turned one way, and decided to go become a registered dietitian. So I've been a dietitian now for 12 years. And I own my own private practice. So I own Vibrant Nutrition and Fitness, hence the hair. That kind of goes with that. I was just at a music festival this weekend. So the thought of anything other than water makes my stomach cringe because I didn't drink enough water this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm drinking.
Awesome. Yeah, water is the great OG.
Water. Yeah.
Yeah.
But today we were going to kind of focus on the menopause slash midlife, especially for women, because I feel like I've had an influx of women that I've been working with that it's like they come in, they talk to me, whether it's through Instagram or coming into my office, and they're like, I turned 40 and I looked at the scale and I'm like, what happened? So I think this is a very important topic to talk about because sometimes it's a very big defeating feeling and it's like, all right, this happens and there's nothing else I can do because what I've always done in my 20s and 30s is no longer working, so I'm just doomed for the rest of my life.
Which obviously is not true. But I will say, your body's a little bit different. You got to do things a little bit differently. Honestly, maybe some things you probably should have been doing in your 20s and 30s. Just most people don't. So let's get into it.
So, Julie, do you want to start off kind of sharing what are your thoughts when someone comes to you and they're like, have that, I turned 40 and I look down and I don't know where this weight came from?
Gosh, there's so much to unpack in that
Yeah.
question because that's all I hear every single day as I work with women in this stage of life. So in midlife, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s, when they look at themselves and go, shoot, I don't really know what happened. I was just living my life, and then all of a sudden I start packing on this weight. And then I try every diet and nothing works. So those are the things I hear all the time. So it's often I don't know what to do with myself. I'm gaining all this weight, but nothing is working. So it's this really confusing time of, well, what should I do? And then, not to mention, the whole nutrition realm is entirely confusing for the average consumer, let alone a nutrition professional. Like, we sometimes have to worry, like, well, what's really right these days? Like, because there's so much stuff out there. So for the women that come to see me, they typically say, yeah, I've tried everything and I don't know what to do, because they're just so overwhelmed with what to do that they don't know what to do. So for the most part, I try to dial it back and try to make sure women know that it doesn't have to be complicated and that it really is just dialing it back to getting your protein, prioritizing that, prioritizing your fiber, and then of course the way we move our bodies is entirely different in midlife. And so I'm actually in my midlife. So when I turned 40, I wouldn't say I felt the same way as, oh, my body is really changing. I just have noticed that I can't do the things I used to be able to do. and still recover well. Speaking of which, the music fest, I probably could have been, really, really partying over the weekend with as a 20-year-old, but then as a 40-year-old, of course, my body's taking it a little bit harder. So that's for sure. But yeah, like for the most part, that's where I try to dial it back with those women is, and are we prioritizing protein in midlife? Most women are not. For most women that come to see me, when we do analyze their nutrition, most of the time they're maybe making 50% of their recommendations of protein intake, and fiber is another thing that they're not meeting. So that's where I typically start to focus their nutrition changes and behavior changes. But yeah, like that, we can start with that. I know you probably have some things that you would want to interject here, but I have so much more to say about that for sure.
I wanna ask, because this is, again, like when we're talking about, like, of course it's confusing for the consumer. I see tons of different dietitians online giving different recommendations for what you just said, like protein. So, my recommendations that I have for clients are usually much higher than they would think. And so I wanted to get your kind of like take on it. What are your protein recommendations, or what do you think like midlife
Yes.
women require?
Yes, so absolutely. So I tend to recommend 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
And so that, I don't know what that is in kilograms, but I try to make sure it's easy for the average American to understand. So 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you are shooting for 150 grams of protein. Most folks don't do that because let's think about it. When we grab food that we want, that we crave, that we enjoy, is it chicken? Is it beef? Is it like those not readily available types of protein sources? No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're grabbing crackers, chips, cookies, the things that are super, super processed. So obviously they're not going to get their protein intake unless they're planning for it. And that's the biggest thing is I tell people you're not going to make it. You're not going to get your protein if you're not prioritizing it and you're not planning for it in every single meal. So I constantly talk about, okay, is your plate balanced? Are you getting a great amount of protein for breakfast? Most people don't. Like, what do you guys find is what most people do for breakfast?
Like really, it's higher carbs, easy.
Yeah.
There we go. Higher carbs, low protein. That's
Yeah.
just what people are doing.
Yeah.
No, and it's so true. Like first of all, women in general are just not getting enough protein. Like I have so many theories, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, okay? But I like why women are told don't eat protein and do cardio when women literally need to build up their skeleton throughout their whole
Mhm.
life, whatever. But that can seem like really crazy, the whole 1 gram per pound body weight. But like if you're shooting for that, it's much easier to reach weight loss goals and health goals because you're satiated.
Mhm.
And
100%.
I like that you mentioned the planning part of things because while, yes, it sounds like all three of us are kind of teaching, let's keep it simple, let's keep it basic, let's not add stress to our brain. But there is always that part where you do have to plan something because we can't just be going out to the wild and be like, yeah, I'm going to eat protein.
It's
But
like
how are you going to get that into your meal? And yeah, it probably will be more challenging at first, especially if you're not used to eating that much protein or if you're not used to preparing food. It will be a lot different if you grab a Pop Tart for breakfast versus like putting together a smoothie or making some eggs or having hard boiled eggs ready to go. So I think that's a part too that's important, that it may seem a little harder at first, but your body will thank you. And many women are coming to me, they're wanting to lose weight, but getting enough protein goes beyond weight loss too, like
mhm.
bone health. And that's something I mentioned to someone actually this morning that I was working with. And she was like, well, I don't have osteoporosis. I don't need to worry about them. Like, well, you don't now, but let's think about like the future. Let's age nicely.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Smoothly.
And so when we say we want to make things super simple, so this is what I do for my clients, and I'm sure you guys probably do something similar, but I start with what they have, and then I usually tell them just increase what you're doing. So maybe that is you had a maybe not so balanced dinner, and maybe your portion of chicken wasn't as big as it needs to be. So I do a lot of teaching on this is what an average 3.5 to 4 ounces of chicken is going to look like. It's going to give you this amount of protein. A lot of times they look at me and go, oh, I don't usually eat that much. Like it's educating about what the sizes of portions should be to get that protein in, but it's also understanding how it changes your body. In fact, I just had a client who told me the same thing. Hey, Julie, I had a bigger portion of fish at dinner tonight or last night, and then I wasn't as hungry. I didn't snack. I didn't go to the pantry at 9 o'clock when I should have been going to bed because I just didn't think about it. And so that right there tells you that If you're not getting enough protein and you find yourself snacking, then the simple solution is just increase what you're already doing. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest too, especially with that animal protein. Just do a larger portion. I think sometimes the hardest is that breakfast meal, and that's where we come in and kind of help you like, all right, this is what you can do to just add to it without also having to eat 5 eggs, because not everyone wants to eat 5 eggs at one time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, if you put, like Bailey said, it might seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but you need to build those habits. Like, you're in a routine already. You don't realize, like, you have your habits set. You just need to tweak them a little bit. And I had a client this week who was like, I prepped some things for breakfast, or I made sure I had things on hand. And I'm not going to lie, I felt so much less overwhelmed throughout the day. And I was, yeah. So we want to keep it simple, but there's some work that goes in with it, but you're going to be thankful for that. And then when you have your new habits established, it is more simple.
It gets easier.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so that's kind of like the protein. Let's go into the other things you were going to talk about, because you're like, let's start with protein. You talked about fiber a bit.
Fiber is one that I notice a lot of people kind of lacking in, where it's maybe a vegetable at dinner. Otherwise, that's only the time we're getting veggies. And I'm like, oh, yeah, in your fiber one bar, not my favorite. Let's get some fruits and veggies.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with fiber. So, of course, we have to talk about what comes along with fiber, and your digestive health is certainly that big indicator. So, I have another client who is struggling with digestive health. And so we just started adding things high in fiber. And wouldn't you know, her digestive health and going to the bathroom improved as soon as we did that. She's like, I feel so much better.
And you didn't have to spend hundreds of dollars on testing, because you just got that foundational piece down, and it fixed the issue.
And it's something so super simple. So when I teach balanced plates, it truly is, what's your protein source, what's your fiber source, and then are your carbohydrates balanced on the plate versus overwhelming the plate? You know what I mean? Like, I try not to have them base their whole meal on rice and then put things on top of rice. It is, do you have your protein source first, then your vegetables, then you add in the rice?
Yeah, just balancing it out. A lot of times you can take stuff that you're already eating, and we just need to like tweak the portions a bit, and like you got it for the most part.
Well, it's partly because of confusing information. So people think that nutrition should be hard. People think that if we want to lose weight, then it's got to be some huge drastic change. And when it's not, they're like, "Oh, this is all it is." Yeah, it doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's so sweet, because it's not going to be sustainable if it is.
Yeah, it feels like we have to be super strict about it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And then it's funny, every time I start working with new people, they are like, I think I'm doing this wrong. I'm like, why? You're telling me how great you feel. You're telling me your clothes are getting looser. What feels wrong? Like, well, it just seems too simple compared to all these other things I had to do. I'm like, well, you're not put on this earth to diet your life away and go back and forth through losing the same 10, 20 pounds every year. So you had kind of mentioned movement a little bit. Do you want to jump into how does fitness look a little different, especially in this midlife time period?
Yeah. So this is something I'm super passionate about, because this is something that women get wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And I hear it all the time. Julia, I don't need to lift weights. Let me just go run on the treadmill. Let me just go get on the elliptical and do the cardio that's going to burn calories. And I really think the world is somewhat changing in this area, because we are speaking so highly of strength training, but every single woman in her 20s, all the way up to even her 60s, 70s, 80s need to be strength training. And you guys know this, but it really is truly to preserve your bone health, to preserve your longevity, to be independent. So not set aside all the great benefits that, muscle burns more calories. It allows you to be a bit more, I don't know, you can eat more if you have more muscle on your body. Like, you will eat more because you need to fuel that. But it's all based on this scary notion that if you lift weights, you're going to get heavy and bulky and you're going to look like a man, which unfortunately is not, fortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, fortunately that's not the case. But for women that are trying to actually build muscle, my dogs are going to bark now. For women that are trying to build muscle, like, it is hard to do unless you're actually fueling the muscle with protein and calories. And so I spend so much time educating women on the importance of strength training. And if you're not lifting heavy, you're doing it wrong. And it's really intimidating. And I don't know if you guys feel that see the same thing with your clients, but women don't know they don't know where to start. They
Yeah.
see the gym as being like a scary place, that the weight room is all for men and I don't want to be there because
Intimidating.
it's very intimidating. So
Mhm.
do you see that in your with your clients as well?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think it's like I've almost felt like there's been a viewpoint where strength training is also only for like the younger generations too. Like in high school, you do your strength training classes, but it's like once we are above 40, we just don't have to do it anymore because we're doing more of the cardio because we've been told that's what burns fat. So I think it is so important for women, yes, to start understanding we need this muscle. But also, I do have several women that come to me that are already doing strength training. They're doing it 5 days a week, but they're not eating enough. So if we're not doing that part, we're breaking down that muscle, but we're not refueling our body to build it back up. So that's not going to be super beneficial as well, which is why I think we have to start with the nutrition part, number one, because it's our job. Number two, because that's going to be that foundational piece. If we're not eating enough, a lot of things are not going to fall in line.
And so
Well,
that's why, like, sometimes I have people say they come to me, they want to lose weight, but they also want to build muscle. And I'll say, okay, but we have to pick one. To be honest with you, you can do both and lose weight and gain muscle at the same time. It's harder, but it's also much more beneficial if you give yourself a few months to build and then go for a little bit of a fat loss phase. So maybe you're not always consistently eating in a deficit, which we know wrecks our metabolism. And I think a lot of women have that wrong, where they just consistently diet. Their metabolism goes down and starts to adapt to these lower calories that they've been restricting. And then now what do they do?
right.
So I can understand where they're coming from and I empathize with them because
Yeah.
and I hope we have some listeners today that are in their 20s, 30s, because when you're in that age, if you're not building this muscle now, it's going to be even harder to build it later. And so I started strength training in my, let's see, early 30s. And that was the best thing I could have done for myself. And I feel like that's been my ticket to being able to maintain my body composition the way I like it because I have
Mhm.
muscle, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, it's just that little thing right there, like you saying body composition. And unfortunately, for a lot of women who are scared of the scale going up or they're scared of eating too much, those are two things that are probably going to happen if you're building muscle and you're changing that composition. If you want to look the way you have in your brain, I always tell women this, like, that booty, all that, that is muscle. That takes food, that takes work. Like, you cannot be under eating and build a butt. It's just not
Mhm.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so many do come to me already in that calorie deficit because I always think us as dietitians, we a lot of times end up being the last resort type thing where they've tried all the diets, they've tried to do it on their own, and it's not working. So then they come to us already in this calorie deficit, confused why they're not losing weight. They're working out and doing all these pieces. So then when I increase what they're eating, it's kind of that mind boggling type situation. They're like, this is not what I've been told to do. I've been told I need to eat less, be in this calorie deficit. I'm like, you're actually you're going to be in this calorie deficit still, but we're also going to be supporting your body so it can get through the day as well.
Nobody talks about the maintenance phase. Okay, we
Mhm.
talk about calorie deficits, we talk about calorie surplus, and everybody forgets there's a maintenance somewhere in there. And that's where you should be eating a lot of the times. It's not this huge deficit. And if you've been eating in like this 1,000 calorie deficit for years and it's not working, why keep doing it?
And I think women are just so scared to hear you need to eat more. Sorry, hun, you need
Mm-hmm.
to eat more. Like you're just not eating enough. Oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight. That's exactly the opposite of what I want to do. And similar situation, I've had clients that come to me consistently been dieting for a long time. And then we said, okay, let's gradually start to pull you up gradually. And as soon as
Yeah.
we did, she was like, oh my God, my workouts are better. I'm not tired. And oh, look, the scale went down. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's our magic that we're able to do. There's no magic pill, but there is magic when
Right.
you listen to the science part of life.
Right.
And odds are
Right.
it's more food.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. What else did we want to? I feel like we touched on
Well,
a lot.
Well, I guess if you have someone who is, let's say they're 55 and
Mm-hmm.
they come in, they have never worked out a day in their life. They're trying to lose 20 pounds. They want to build muscle. They want to get in the gym. They're just not sure where to start. Where would you kind of start with the fitness part of things. If you've already covered nutrition, we're moving on to the fitness.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to strength training, if you've never done it, like you need to have a professional help you. Like, sure, it'd be great if you could just download a workout and take it into the gym and do it yourself. But if you're really new to this and have never done it, hire a personal trainer, hire somebody that will help you and give and guide you, not only to write you the programming, but also to be there with you in person. Because there's something to be said about for form and technique to make sure you set up good habits in the gym versus just going in there and winging it and just trying to make something up as you go. For most people, you start on the basic machines where those machines will guide you through range of motion and that keeps you safe while you're lifting, especially if maybe you can't afford to have a personal trainer. But I would recommend doing 2 days a week of some kind of full body exercise. So make sure you hit every single major muscle group with those machines. And in fact, I have a client that's just that person, 50 years old, never done it before. And I wrote her very simple, easy to follow exercises, an exercise routine, and made sure that she followed up with me every time she did a workout. Because then we had to talk about, okay, what do you eat afterwards? Because you want to make sure you're fueling up afterwards. So we talked about that, of course.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I've had the question a few times, like if I use a personal trainer. I've actually never used one, but I was, fun fact, a certified personal trainer when I was in college. I never used it on anyone else but myself. So through that, that's how I knew how to do the right form. But I've also like videoed myself to see what I look like doing it. So I think having that personal trainer just to get started is super helpful because we don't want you going in trying to lift heavy and now you have a back injury. So now you feel really screwed.
And I gotta say too, like, and I always try to remind clients of this, like heavy is relative. So if you're someone who's never lifted before, you're not gonna go like load a barbell with some 45-pound plates and do something with it. Like that's not heavy. Like heavy is what is heavy for you. So that's just my reminder. And yeah, if you have a professional that's helping you out, you can help like establish what's a good like weight I should be using for reps here. And they can help you out.
And just considering most women think strength training and they think those tiny little weights and they're uncomfortable going over 10 pounds. I'm like, that is not it. Like, that's a good place to start, but let's really push you where you can find a good failure at the end of each set. So you really are strengthening that muscle. It is so imperative. Like I will die on this hill that women need to be doing this. And I will get even my like 70-year-old mother-in-law in the gym and get her working her butt off because we all need to.
It's super important.
Mm-hmm. Especially like, I mean, when we just talk about how long you're able to live independently and do normal life functions, strength training is going to give you that.
When I tell my clients, you want to eat more, build muscle. Like seriously, if you want to eat more, build your muscle and then you can enjoy that. So you're eating more maintenance calories.
Yeah.
And the more muscle you have, the more carbohydrates you need for those glycogen stores. You're doing more of those workouts, you need more of it. So that can be a great motivator for many people.
I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about nutrition, we've talked about fitness, but I know like with midlife, there's like lifestyle factors that most people probably have bad habits like around. So what are a couple other things that impact muscle, weight loss, all that sort of thing around this time?
Yeah. So 100%, I always have these conversations with my clients about your stress. If you're in a constant state of stress tells your body that there's something physically wrong and it doesn't know the difference between emotional stress and physical stress. It will still think a bear is chasing you if you're in this chronic amount of stress. And so if we're not appreciating that and not doing things to manage that, so that might mean, I don't know, meditation. That might mean enjoying a book, something that you really truly enjoy. And if you're not doing those things daily to really manage your stress levels, then you're only doing yourself a huge disservice. And it's something that is going to continue to come at you if you don't manage it in a good way. For most people, I don't need to tell them that they're stressed. Most people know they're stressed, but then they'll tell me I don't have time for it. Okay. And we get into priorities. Like, you want to make time for it? You're going to have to make time for it. It's something that is such not misunderstood, but it's something that is underappreciated in terms of a weight loss journey and in terms of just an overall health. If we don't manage our stress, it's going to come back and get you in some form or way.
I would say it's one of those kind of weight loss hacks that, like you're saying, it is underappreciated because a lot of times stress can be one of the big contributors to belly fat. And it is something that a lot of times we can do for free to manage it.
Yeah.
Some of it does sound woo woo, which freaks a lot of people out. But I'm like, who cares? Try it out. If it doesn't work, nothing bad is going to happen from trying a meditation app.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe it worked, and now you have to admit that you were wrong and it worked, and that's going to suck. But
You
now
realize
your
you like
stress is
it.
better.
No, but it's one of those things. I think stress management, everybody breezes over it because it's not that elaborate thing, right? Like when we think, ooh, change up how we're eating, we start a new fitness routine, we're doing all this stuff. Those are like things that we're like, oh, we have to put effort into doing, or people view it as like effort. People don't view like, oh, take some deep breaths throughout the day as effort. They're like, okay, cool. Like, tell me to breathe, whatever. And they just ignore it. But it's so good for you. And like you said, even for your long-term health, like we know stress kills. Like we know that.
It can make that big difference. And we've talked about this in a few episodes, how we just ignore the simple things. And I do it to myself too. I mean, I was having issues with my back on Friday. The chiropractor I work with was like, do these exercises 10 times every hour. It'll probably help. I did them twice that day, and I was supposed to do them like 10 times. And it was so simple. Like it was just moving my neck backwards and forwards. But I didn't do it because I just didn't think about it. It's like, it's super simple. It's not going to work. But I should have just done it because it's helping now.
Yeah, I think people just assume that, oh, that's for somebody else. I'm not stressed. Or, oh gosh, my stress isn't going to go away. And they just kind of brush it off. And that's not helpful. Like that is something that is, once they do feel the benefits of managing their stress more, then there's no doubt they're going to continue to do it. But if they haven't become a believer yet, then you still work on getting them to become a believer somehow. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the first step is what is your viewpoint on it too when we're going into this? If you're going into meditation thinking about how stupid this is going to be, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it is going to feel stupid the whole time. You got to give it your all, give it a chance. And when I was trying to think of, okay, how am I going to manage my stress every day? It was, what do I enjoy? I liked being outside and I liked walking, but I used to have this relationship with walking that it was stupid and pointless because I should be running. But then I was like, I don't even like running. So I don't run anymore, but I walk outside for stress relief and I still get my steps in and it still is beneficial. You don't have to run.
That's a good, you find what you like. So I explore with my clients, say, what do you like to do? Like for one client, it's, he likes to play video games. I'm like, okay, so go do your video games for a few minutes. Like that's helpful. Like that's not unproductive time. It's productive time.
Yeah. It's finding that balance too. So like I like how you said the few minutes of the video games. It's not playing video games for 4 hours, staying up till 2 a.m. It's that balance piece of things.
Yeah. Which probably leads us to another thing, the whole staying up to 2 a.m. What are your thoughts about sleep in this?
Yeah.
Like really in all.
Right. So clearly nutrition, fitness, stress, and sleep are the four things that I typically teach on the most because sleep is another one of those things where people say, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or, oh, I need to, stay up late to do whatever. And it's always the thing that gets brushed off as well. And so without that understanding of, well, these are the things that happen when you sleep. So I start to educate on this is when muscle fibers start to grow. This is when, memories are stored in a different part of your brain. This is where your body repairs, like all of these things. And as long as they understand that, they should probably think, oh, maybe I shouldn't skimp on this. Like maybe it is a good thing to try to go to bed a little bit earlier. I have one client who is a chronic, just likes to stay up because it's her time when her kids are asleep. So yeah, I get that. But you're also giving yourself a handicap essentially in weight loss and just stress management too. So sleep is one of those things that we all need to get more of because no one gets too much, I would imagine.
Yeah.
People will say like, oh, I'm just so used to it. Like I'm used to 5 to 6 hours of sleep. I'm like, no, you're not. You think you are. And your cortisol is like, sprinting all day trying to help you.
That's why they're living off of caffeine. That's why they've got so many cups of coffee every damn day.
No, you think you are. You're not. What's your recommendation for sleep? What's your non-negotiable? This should be your goal.
Bare minimum 7 hours. Absolutely. 7 hours, 7 to 8, even 9 for some people. Like I have one client who is really been exploring this. And she's like, Julie, it really has got to be 9 hours for me because she's early riser. And so she's getting to bed at like 8 o'clock. Like,
Yeah.
well, you got to do what you got to do. And it's one of those things that once you optimize your sleep, then it's amazing when you feel great. I wear this Aura ring because it helps me with my sleep. And these are one of the things I'll recommend to all my clients because it will track how long you've slept in different cycles of your sleep. And if you're not getting enough REM sleep or not getting enough deep sleep, there are things that you can do to help better your sleep hygiene. And so this is something that's been really helpful, not only for me, but for my clients.
Yeah. Just to show like, hey, you're not getting as good quality sleep as you think. This is a huge part in like why you're feeling this way or why you can't reach goals or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think one last thing we wanted to touch on. So we've kind of talked about different things that you guys can be doing like this week, things that you have control of, what you can adjust. So another part that comes with menopause, midlife aging, it's my hormones. I think it's just my hormones. So do you want to touch on that? Thoughts around hormones, thoughts on it's kind of going back to that, am I just doomed because I have no control over my hormones?
Yeah. So a lot of my education around hormones comes to understanding what you can control and what you can't control. So in midlife, our estrogen and progesterone always starts to be sporadic and then it will start to slow down. That's when you start to feel these perimenopause symptoms that most people come to see us for.
Mm-hmm.
Can't control that. Unfortunately, you can't control that estrogen lowering. You cannot, that's a natural part of aging. You cannot stay in your 30s and 20s the rest of your life. You can't control that. If you have a physician that would support you in hormone replacement therapy, I'm an advocate for it because it does help. It is not the thing that will help you lose weight, though. So, what can you control when you lose weight? When it comes to your hormones, you can balance your insulin. You can continue to be insulin sensitive, balance your blood sugar, all of that stuff. And then we talk about making sure you're eating a balanced meal and what that does to our blood sugar. And so, that is something to do with when people say it's all in my hormones, well, sure, it is, but you're also contributing to some of the things that your hormones are not helping you with, like spiking your blood sugar. Mm-hmm. So your insulin goes crazy and then you start to become insulin resistant, all of those things. So, yes, when it comes to your hormones, you can't control it, but you can support your lifestyle with balanced meals, great sleep, get your movement in, like all of those things. And it's not your hormones to blame. It's a lot of the lifestyle things that have impacted your hormones. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it does. And I think sometimes we just like, we feel powerless. Like, oh, I can't do anything about my hormones. But really, a lot of things that we do manipulate our hormones. And like you said, yeah, estrogen and progesterone, like those are going to dip. That's part of our, women's health. Like that's just what it does. But there's so many other things you can control. And then, yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm in my 30s, but like HRT, I feel like so many women have been taught to fear it. I don't think that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Yeah, there was a misunderstanding with it potentially causing cancer, but that is in a select, very small population of women that may have the breast cancer gene that's sensitive to estrogen. So yeah, there are lots of physicians out there that support it and it will help you manage those symptoms, but it's not the cure to weight loss. Like that's the thing. People think that, oh, if I just get on HRT, it's going to help me lose weight. It may not. You never know, but it's not the solution for weight loss. It's the lifestyle management. You're not doomed to gain weight. If you do some of the things that we're already talking about, prioritize protein, get your sleep, get your fiber, strength train, all of these things that we're talking about, like things will go your way if you're consistent with doing these things. But that's the big thing is the consistency.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's such a good point to really make. Like you're not doomed to not lose weight. You're not doomed to just be this way. Like this is, so many women think that like, oh, this is just it. It's just me. I can't control it. I'm just struggling with it. And yeah, rightfully so. You're having struggles, but you don't need to stay there.
And that consistency piece, it's got to be there. It's not, we're going to do these things for a week. Oh, nothing happens. We're giving up. It's continuing to work on them, work them in, add them in slowly. Like we always talk about, do not do everything we are talking about in the same day. You're going to get that overwhelmed piece of things. And then you're going to be back to square one, blaming the hormones, blaming things that you don't really have control on, and not focusing on the things that you do have control over.
Yep. Start small. Get your basics.
Well, Well, I think this was super helpful to kind of give people ideas, get their gears turning on if you're at this point in your life. So, Julie, I want to ask you to close this out. What are the top 3 things you would recommend for these women to do this week?
Okay, so summarizing this whole discussion, if you're not getting your protein, track your food to see if you're getting your protein, and then shoot for that 1 gram per pound of body weight. So, and then like Bailey says, start small. If you're not there, increase your portion size. As a protein, maybe add protein at breakfast. Simple. Don't overcomplicate it. So that's 1. So number 2, get your butt in the gym, do some strength training. If you're not, find somebody to help you do so, because that is something that we all need to be doing for all of these reasons we already talked about. But if nothing else, to get that big old butt that you want, right?
Yes. I'm working on it.
Right. So that's 1 and 2. So number 3 is definitely, and we didn't really touch on this, but it's a super simple concept. Stand more than you sit. Just be more active throughout the day. So we're not taking away your cardio. We're just shifting how we do it. We're doing more activity throughout the day. I don't sit at my desk. I stand. I have a walking tread because I need to walk. I enjoy that movement because I know it's helping me support my body composition. So if you're not moving more, find ways to move more. Park further away. Go up and down your steps with your laundry basket. Do something just to move your body more throughout the day. That's number 3.
Yeah,
I love it.
I like those. Anything else you wanted to add to this episode? Anything we missed? I feel like we covered a lot of things.
No, that's pretty much it. So like, I die on the hill of strength training. If you're not strength training, I need you to, and then I need you to feel what it feels like to be powerful in the gym, because it's not to be scared of. It is amazing to be able to move something like that.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing is when I'm at the gym and I see like a guy kind of like do a little double take. Like, yeah.
Hey. Married, by the way.
Married, by the way, but I'm cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels good. You're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, tell everyone where they can reach you.
So I'm active on my Instagram. So that's at VibrantRD on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook too. And my business name is Vibrant Nutrition and Fitness. You can Google me there. I've got a website as well. So, but best to find me on Instagram.
Awesome. And we'll include your handle in the show notes too, so people can find you.
All right. And one last thing I wanted to add was, if you are scared to get in the gym, the biggest advice I can tell you is, number 1, just go. But also number 2, people are usually paying more attention to themselves than they are you.
Yeah, they are. And I guarantee you're not the only one in the gym that feels that way. Just who cares?
And if you make a mistake, somebody will be there to help you. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't figure something out, people are not mean people. When it comes to the gym, people think they are, but they're not. Like, if somebody sees somebody struggling, I would be the first person to go up and help them. Somebody else will do that for you. 100%.
That's my husband. That's my husband all day. He'll be like, oh, I need help him. I'm like, oh. All right, fine.
To the rescue.
Yeah.
It's very like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming on and joining us for Mocktail Minutes. We hope you had fun with us.
Yes, thanks for having me. I did have a lot of fun, so appreciate it.
Good. All right. Well, we will talk. This outro, I'm going to work on it. We will talk to everyone next week.
Bye.
Bye.